Meantime, as you've probably heard, Harvey Weinstein now arrested, processed, and charged, pleading not guilty. $1 million bail to make sure that he can still be outside with the rest of us. To criminal defense attorney Whitney Boan on what happens now. What do you think, Whitney? Whitney, can you hear us?
Yes.
What happens now here? What's the next step in this process?
Hi, Neil. What happens now is that Mr. Weinstein has already said through his lawyer that he's going to plead not guilty to these criminal charges. So he's going to probably stand trial. I wouldn't expect at this point that the prosecutors are going to try to work out a plea deal with him, nor that he might be inclined to do so either. What we're going to see probably is a lengthy trial that includes a lot of these victims who are going to be able to testify, even though they're not going to be victims in this particular trial, because it's similar fact evidence to the allegations against him in this case.
All right. Now, obviously, there was initial concern that he would be a flight risk. He put up the $1 million bail. He has to wear a GPS device, something they can keep track of him. Do you think he's a flight risk?
I do think he's a flight risk. I think that he has every reason in the world to try to flee at this point. They also had him surrender his passport, however. So that's pretty standard in criminal proceedings where a defendant is a flight risk. At least if they surrender their passport, they're going to have a very hard time getting out of the country, at least by legal means. So I do think he has a lot of reason to go, but hopefully this will be enough to keep him here to stand trial.
You know, a lot of people saying, oh, this is the Me Too movement on steroids, but there are very big distinctions in the charges against Harvey Weinstein than some of these other cases that have popped up, right?
Well, as a criminal defense attorney, it's kind of my worst nightmare, but the truth is where there's smoke, there's a fire. And there is definitely a fire here. Not only has he apparently and allegedly engaged in a lot of misconduct sexually with women, he's done so in a very specific manner where it involves his having them come to hotel rooms, having them come to his office under the guise of conducting legitimate business with them and having them perform auditions. There's a pattern in the way that he does this. So I think that this is probably got some substance to it, although he is presumed innocent as a matter of law under our Constitution, and he has the right to stand trial and have a jury decide.
Well, the difference between some of those cases, severe and obnoxious as they are, is the rape issue here on a number of occasions, right?
That's correct. In this case, he can be prosecuted under New York law, actually, because there's allegations of forced compulsion or that he used physical force to rape these women. And so even though some of these allegations are apparently as old as 2004 for the victims who he is charged with committing rape against in this case that he got arrested for and turned himself in for today, the prosecution can still go forward. There's a pattern of him allegedly using a lot of force with these women where they're telling him, no, I don't want to do this, and physically forcing them to commit sexual acts with him.
But if they're more than a decade old, that's tough, isn't it? I mean, his lawyer is going to claim, why now, and where's the proof?
Well, and his lawyer has every right to do so, and certainly if I was his lawyer, I would do the same.
Right.
But it's an issue in terms of the weight of the evidence. The law, as set out in New York, specifically does not provide for a statute of limitations, which means where prosecutors aren't able to prosecute something because it's been too long. They don't have that in New York, so for these particular charges at least. So he can be prosecuted. It's not a legal issue. Certainly his lawyers could and should argue to the jury, you know, these maybe are less credible. There's going to be less evidence to substantiate these allegations because of the age of them. And then it'll be up to a jury to decide. All
right. And that would be something that in the worst case scenario could land him in jail for decades, right?
It could land him in jail for, I believe, upwards of 25 years. It could be a minimum of 5 years if he's convicted of the charges that are circulating right now, at least.
Right.
So he could be in prison for the rest of his life.
All right. I believe he's 66. Whitney Boan, thank you very, very much. Criminal defense attorney.
Thank you, Neil.
We're keeping